We've had. And that. You're one, I'm fine. We need to some exciting involved. That would be.
Public record request for board meeting minutes.
Draft notes. I don't think nothing. Right up here in the circle. I'd be right coming down here with you to understand it. Even if they got it. Mhm.
When that baby goes.
Gardens Tiger younger.
If they wanted to explore younger echo operators.
Online.
All right, according to my watch, it's 3 o'clock. Good afternoon, each and every one. I'll call to order the May 16th Link Transit Board of Directors meeting. I want to note that we're going to make a couple of agenda amendments, assuming the board will agree to it. One, I've had a request from a board member to move the executive session number item 7 up to under 5.7. We're going to try to honor that request. And then 2, move action item 8.1 to after the staff reports, so after 9.6. So with that, I would seek a motion to approve that amended agenda as presented.
So moved. I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. All right, this is the point in time where, based on the discussions that we have today on today's agenda, I would ask that if there's any member of the board that believes that he or she has a potential conflict, now would be that time to identify that. Seeing and hearing none, we'll move forward. All right. Public comment for non-agenda items. We'll allow up to 3 minutes for public comment per individual. And I think, Sam, you also are manning the online, so we'll start with in our chambers first. Is there anybody that would care to address the board in chambers? Seeing anybody, what about online?
I don't see anything.
All right, so for now, I'll close the public comment period for now and move on to consent agenda. We have 3 items. Minutes of our April 18th, 2023 board meeting, our accounts payable vouchers from April 2023, and our payroll vouchers from April 2023. Seek a motion to approve those as they were presented in our packet.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second
the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're getting at breakneck speed right along to board member administration and communications. And we have a special opportunity to something that I think is just amazing, and that is to recognize one of our longtime coach operators and recognizing him for 30 years of accident-free operation of our coaches. I mean, that's been absolutely amazing. Roberto Torres.
Roberto has been here for a long time, and our first 30 years, his brother, who was here about 6 months longer than Roberto's been. But 30 years, no chargeable accidents the entire time. That's probably about 1.5 to 2 million miles accident free. He's an exceptional operator. Nothing but positive comments on Roberto over the years. And, you know, he focused and he's sort of one of the people you kind of point to saying, that's what we want. And Roberto always did their best. Congratulations.
Wow.
Giving a check from our insurance pool for $150 for achieving his 30 years of safe driving. It's a new pool recognizes for exceptional operators. So we got a truly exceptional operator. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I said, he and his brother both, and we very likely have a third one.
And you said 1.5 miles.
It's the average operator does about 28,000 miles a year. So
My sons could learn something. We next have an opportunity to recognize another one of our stellar staff members in the form of 26 years of excellent service to Link. And he's our IT specialist, Joe Brule. I'd like to welcome Joe up and recognize, please share a round of applause.
So Joe has been with us for 26 years, but prior to that, he worked for our contractor that used to run paratransit as a dispatcher. He came over originally in a dispatch role and moved into our homegrown self-taught IT specialist. So something we asked, he started computerizing, he actually took us into the modern age. Sometimes kicking and screaming and him included. My support for the entire time I've been here. It's congratulations and hope you have a wonderful retirement and thank you for all the efforts you put in.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right.
Once again, congratulations to both gentlemen. All right, moving on to our high five awards. We
Oh,
have,
actually,
I'm sorry.
actually, now they want them are here, so we're gonna do this next.
Oh, they're not.
Oh, we are, okay. Yeah, they want to be able to stay.
All right, we will recognize them next. All right, we have, Aaron's going to, mention just a moment about board member, meeting notes.
Yeah, so I was asked to just remind folks, when you are creating notes for your own personal use, those are not public records, so make sure that if you want to protect them as personal notes, that you take them with you and dispose of them appropriately or maintain them if you see fit. But if they are notes that are created for the agency's use, they are public records and should be turned over to Selena at the end of the meeting. If you're just taking notes to remind yourself of things, and those are not the type of agency records that we're looking for. But if you are taking notes and communicating with another board member during the meeting, those likely would be construed as agency notes, and should be turned over to Selena at the end, just so we make sure that we're being compliant with our public records requirements.
Thank you, Aaron. Is there any questions for Aaron on that subject?
Just past that, we have heard from a couple of people who watch our meetings saying, should those be recorded? And, you know, whether they're appropriate or not, I don't know, but I just wanted to have you be aware that if you're doing something and sharing it, that probably ends up being a public record. If you're just doing it for yourself, you can, that's fine, no issue. And if it isn't you're sharing, it's not a big deal, we just need to have it in case someone asks.
And the caveat to that, if you're sharing, I'm having a birthday party on Saturday, that's probably not a public record, but if you're just sharing notes about the agency business, that would be a record.
What if we're writing notes and the guy next to us is cheating and looking at it?
Only you, Randy.
I don't think the Public Records Act covers cheaters.
Oh, good, okay.
All right, very good. We'll move along. General manager's report, Richard.
Oh, okay, you got moved, but that's, I can do it now. It's a couple of things. One is I reported that we had reached out to the Department of Revenue because it did not look like they had the appropriate boundaries for our taxing district. And they got back to us and said, yes, they made a mistake. That when we annexed the Arundel and Lake Chelan School District into the service area in 1995, they only added the Arundel School District. They had not been collecting sales tax in the Lake Chelan School District in the Douglas County side of the district since 1995. And so they have admitted that's true. They suggested they will have a proposed remedy for us sometime the next month or so. So we'll see what they offer at that point. There's not a lot up there, but there are some pretty expensive homes that have been built in the last 10 years. And so there could be a sales tax bump that we get because none, either the 410s or 510s have been collected up there for what's, for almost 20 years. So
Richard, do you know where that money's been going?
it wasn't collected at all.
Collected.
It wasn't
It wasn't
collected.
even collected.
They
so-
didn't add
So
it.
these property owners are gonna get hit by a pretty big tax bill associated with
No,
this, or
no.
how is that?
No, it's this sales tax, so they can't actually go back on that. So the state will have to
Okay.
reimburse us for what should have been, I mean, sales tax was collected on the properties. But our portion of it wasn't collected. So they know what it is, they know how much sales tax has been paid on those properties, they just have to add our 410s and 510s. To that amount, and that'll come out of a claims fund the state has.
Okay.
For how far they're willing to go back, and that'll be a discussion between councils, I'm sure.
Was 10 years, Bart? Were they talking 10 years?
Council has said that's probably in the ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, we need to, there's gonna be some statute of limitations on it. This does come up from time to time, and we'll be coming to you probably with a negotiated settlement at some point.
Yeah. So they said, yes, you did everything you were supposed to do. You gave us the exact boundaries, including township and range and everything that was necessary. And they read Arundel and never went any further. They didn't include that other section. So
Apparently, we're easily forgettable.
okay. This might be part of the finance committee report, but I'll skip over and I'll come back if I need to do that. We had mentioned to a couple of you that we have a demonstration of a paratransit electric vehicle that is coming to the area. This is this Turkish vehicle I've mentioned, this EJS. They have agreed they're going to give it to us for 3 or 4 days to operate in service. starting on June 19th. So we will have that vehicle and actually be able to put it into operations for a couple of days at least, get some operator feedback, double check the range, and we'll have to make some decisions about what will happen after that pack, whether we want to do something with it or not. But they've arranged to bring the vehicle to us so we can try it out. So we will have that. We have quite an issue here with left behind items. As I think everyone's quite aware, that we've got quite the drug and fentanyl issues in town that have waned and come, but right now what we seem to have is a bunch of people who are bringing lots of possessions with them and then just leaving them in places and maybe to come back. Partially was camping. We've been able to control the camping fairly effectively, but I know when I walked back from lunch, there was a backpack with a bunch of stuff sitting on the corner that someone left down there, and I'm sure they intend to get it, but trying to figure out how to manage these possessions that are sitting there. They're really not lost and found. Most of them are not sanitary, so they don't fit into our lost and found policy. We don't want to encourage this as a storage area because it creates the wrong culture of that organization. So we've posted some signs over the Crane platform. That was where the biggest problem was. We had a bunch of camping over there, and that has stopped. But we're still having fair amounts of stuff out there, trying to work through what we can legally do and effectively manage with these possessions. Further on that topic, I've got staff talking to a number of the support organizations here in the community to see if we can, and I've indicated we have some willingness to pay for some additional staff support of other organizations, perhaps to move some of these people into recovery if we can, get people. So rather than just pushing them between the library and the courthouse and under the bridge and here, which seems to be the pattern that they have, if you can get them to a recovery structure, get them some support, maybe we get rid of the problem. We're not gonna solve all of it, but there's some opportunity, and I think maybe a targeted investment might be a good thing. Going to be proposals yet, you'll see what we're gonna do. I'm not gonna throw something blank at you, but I've asked them to reach out, see what's available, what's working, and see what kind of support we can do, because we have our security side of the equation, but we're just pushing people around. And so maybe if we could do something that gets people into treatment in certain places, then we can reduce the volume of the issues we're seeing.
Are we able to quantify, Richard, the impact, financial impact on the agency with respect to security?
Well, we didn't have a security function at all here up until about 3 years ago, and it's 100% related to the drug issues that we do. And we've got full-time security from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I think it's 7 days a week we have that, and we also do run a little later in the evening, weekdays, but and a couple of times in the day we have to overlap in those positions to provide coverage, and we move that around. So that's all additional. I mean, it's been in the budget, but it's definitely there. Janitorial, we increased our janitorial down here, partially because we increased hours here, but a bigger part of it was just trying to keep on top of it. So you don't, when we started this had declined pretty quickly because people were hanging out here and selling and doing other things, and we sort of stopped that. We need this environment to be safe. If we're trying to move kids and disabled people on the bus system, we want to encourage them to ride the bus. We can't have the terminal be a place that's not comfortable and doesn't feel safe. And if people are getting services here and and these people riding the system and they're using it as we've designed it, happy to have them here as well, but it's got to manage the impacts of what's out there.
I wonder how much ridership has in the city is attributed to that, because I heard some concerns about it from constituents and so forth.
I think it may be an issue. I mean, ridership is doing quite well.
It's hard to put a number on it.
It's hard to put a number on it, but I cannot believe that we wouldn't have more if people felt more comfortable. And generally the buses are comfortable. I all things considered, riding the system and walking around it, I think we do a pretty good job of keeping this up. More than a pretty good job, I think we do a very good job at it. But there's an undertone that's out there, and we just got to make sure that we stay on top of it. And it's gotten a bit more, partially because the city got more aggressive in enforcing under the bridge and other places. So they move where the pressure's lower, and so That's part of the question. And for me is that we just all pushing the same toothpaste tube. It's not gonna go anyplace else. Maybe if we can reduce the demand, the supply side of the equation by getting a few people that are willing to go into treatment, maybe we can change the environment. I don't know if it's worthwhile. I don't know what it's worth the cost. I'm asking for some ideas and proposals because just being security and pushing is not anything, and it just shifts things around. I think
Do the transit agencies lobby in Olympia to try to get some common sense out of there to address this? Because it kind of comes out of Olympia and we're left holding the bag of goods.
Well, I think it's a broader issue than that, and it's partially the court decisions, and yes, there's a lot of this, there was a bill in the legislature this year to give transit agencies direct policing authority to do their own security. Community transit, Sound Transit wanted to do that, it's not a path I think makes sense for us, it's, first of all, it's incredibly expensive. And our security, Civic has done a really good job for us, I mean, we have to work with them, make sure we're telling them what we want, but I think they've been quite effective, and I think staff actually feels pretty positive about them most of the time, and if we raise the issue, they get us a better person, and it seems to work. So I'm comfortable with that, it's just a question of, we had more security to deal with this sort of increase we're seeing, it's gotten warmer, people are, collapsing on the grass, other things, and it's sense of wrong, not the message we want to see. And it's like, well, maybe it makes sense to look at this a little more broadly, systemically as well. So I don't have a proposal for you. I'm just asking to start looking and seeing what's out there. If you've got some suggestions, I'd love to hear them so we can kind of put something together for you as a strategy going forward.
I would think,
Question is maybe more for like the city members that are here. Are they look at anything like code related to limit? Call them resources, what you will, but kind of like that, a field of dreams approach. If you build it, they will come. And looking at doing these things in these, urbanized areas, these business districts, the Lighthouse Ministry is all well intentioned, has been a huge problem. I can only imagine for Link. I know business owner directly behind him, Chad Holiday's custom oven fabrication. It's almost daily. I'll get a picture of someone urinating in his parking lot or dropping garbage off there. I mean, it's almost become a daily occurrence for them to have to kick people out of there, much as I imagine you're facing here at Link. So what was their response? One, contributing to the delinquency of the problems that we're facing here at Link. And the second part of the question, I guess, is maybe for the cities looked at maybe limiting those facilities to where they don't have an impact on establishments like Link.
Well, I will say we have met with Chief Crown and his staff to talk about what we can do. Part of the question was things that changed in the last couple of years on trespassing laws and how we can do, and that's part of the reason council's involved is some of the tools we used previously, we just can't do anymore because of sport decisions. And they've been quite cooperative with us, but they also face the challenge that if there's not any beds at the jail to put someone who's actively the user has to go into isolation. If there's no isolation, they can't keep them. So they may just release them again. And that's part of the problem is that the problem has gotten large enough that the system can't actually handle what we have. And so I think between all of us are trying to find ways to deal with that reality, to get those numbers down to when we can handle it again the way that we have. And I think that was sort of a surprising answer. It wasn't that they don't want to, it's just they just don't physically have the ability to deal with it right now or not consistently. And so they said, go ahead and keep telling people you want us, we'll come down, we'll do the documentation, cite the trespass on individuals that are breaking policies. But I can't guarantee they'd be a place to put them because that hasn't happened, but at least it gets documented. And we had stopped calling them because they weren't picking people up. And so they said, no, we still want to come down and document. We may not be able to pick them up if there's no place to plug them, but at least we can document.
any other questions on this topic? Any other ideas? Certainly, I think we should be utilizing, the other resources locally that we have. Certainly, there's a lot of resources and coordinating.
I know, so we'll bring something to you once we get some feedback on what's out there. I don't have a good vision of it yet. I should know there's some resources that we should be working with.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to reach out to Sasha Slayman at the county. She's our housing manager and handles the homeless housing. And then is under her purview. And then working with the housing task force. There's actually two. One made up of the two cities and then one made up of the
This room may get a little warm. Actually, 2 of the 6 air conditioners in this building are out. And the parts have been on back order since last September. And so getting a little nervous about what summer's gonna be like. So we got fans and my office is a little toasty, so we've got this one turned way down, trying to keep up inside, but we may have to do something else because, like I said, we've been trying to get this part that's failed on the air conditioner, for over 6 months now. And it also was the heater didn't work in the winter. So, to the heat pump. So, great. Let's see, and then got the scorecard in front of you, but I just mentioned that we had another record month. So this is 3 months in a row. We've set all-time ridership records. So we had almost 94,000 boardings in April, which is the highest it's been as long as I've been here, at least 25 years based on the data. I'm not sure if we further back. We did count a little differently in the first 10 years, but we're doing quite well in ridership.
Okay, any questions or comments for Richard? Before we move on? Thank you, Richard. Finance Committee, I'm going to be very brief because most of what we discussed, we'll be discussing at length with regard to some of our action items. And you have the report in your packet. So we did discuss a recommendation on authorizing staff to purchase 9 30-foot BYD electric vehicles. And that's utilizing the green transportation program grant dollars in large part. So that will be something that we will talk about more. Non-bargaining employee equalization recommendation. We'll be discussing that this afternoon as well. And then e-transit vehicles, interlocal, you'll be entertaining for approval with the state of Oklahoma Department of Transportation. And then as Richard already discussed, the issue with respect to Orondo issue, they're not collecting sales tax. Shelter pad or not already sales tax. Shelter pad improvements on Euclid Avenue, as well as the change order for 3rd and Rock Island Road park and ride involving a electrical vault, charging vault. So if you have any questions, now's the appropriate time. Otherwise, we'll get into most of these in the form of action items at a later time.
Nick wanted me to pass on that the new shelter pad out in Euclid and Gun has actually started construction. That's with that temporary roundabout. The location we had was actually exposing a lot of number of development sale people that work at Stamil to having to walk through traffic to the bus stop, and where the logical crosswalk is at the road. So we're moving our bus stop down there. It needs to be moved anyway for the eventual construction of Confluence, but with these immediate safety issues we wanted to address, because having the volume of traffic out there right now is a little scary to watch those folks do that. And then the other issue is the change order that we didn't have the price at the time of the Finance Committee. It's $30,000 for the electrical vault that we need to put in. That will allow us to install a charger in that location without having to recut the concrete, and the engineering firm put the conduit in, the vault in. It's like, well, we still got to cut it. We got to put the vault in. Let's get the vault in now and just cover it, and then we can deal with the charger itself later on.
Just going back to the relocation of the shelter after that finance meeting, I had the opportunity to witness a scary game of Frogger. Yeah, definitely a wise move. All right. Any other questions? All right, moving on to facilities redesign committee report. Randy.
Thank you. Some of you may recall at my last presentation of the last board meeting, I mentioned that I wish I had a picture or two to show you. Elena took that to heart and created a 12-page
That's Nick.
Okay.
All the credit.
Nick had us covered.
Anyway, I believe it's in your packet.
We also have it up here. We can
Okay.
scroll through to the specific images you would like to highlight.
Okay, we'll go through it fairly quickly. One thing I would like to point out on the summary on the first page in your packet. It's the fourth item under status. And basically, it's necessary to complete the construction of additional bus storage in the next 18 to 24 months to accommodate the anticipated delivery date of electric vehicles. It's a big issue we gotta get done, no matter what happens. Anyway, so with that. Here's our current facility, constructed in 1999.
Roll down,
And I'm not gonna read all this to you because you can read it.
one more. Here we go.
Thank you.
Oh, there it is. You can all see the current facilities.
Am I going too fast?
No, you're doing a great job. Anybody having any questions? Only when you see something you want to know about. So, and if you, you got it. This, the new bus parking garage, there's a picture of that in the packet as well.
So that one's been. There it is.
What's the strange looking purple curve line for?
That is a old, that's infrastructure. It runs through that, parcel,
It's actually irrigation ditch.
irrigation.
Very irrigation ditch.
Good place to put it under the building.
Yeah, buried, I thought was the best part. That's not under our building. Our building is over here. To the right. That would be, the new bus parking garage that we're looking at. It would consist of, room for all the buses we're getting and as many as we are anticipating in the future. It also has a indoor heated area. Well, the whole thing's heated in indoors, but currently the guys during the winter are standing out in the cold, cleaning these buses, standing in ice, fueling the buses, and it's, I haven't done it, but I gotta imagine it's miserable and not fun. I certainly wouldn't want to do it. I hate the cold. This will put them inside where it's warm, clean and dry. And all that stuff will be done indoors instead of outdoors. It'll be a lot safer, a lot nicer for everybody.
The one big thing here is this is sort of the idealized issue, so it's replacing what we currently have in the same location in the lot. It's sort of the ideal vision. It's of course the most expensive vision. And the reason we still have it here is we went ahead and applied for a grant to fund 80% of the cost of this. I don't know if we have any chance of getting it or not, but we thought might as well see if we can do that. I don't think this is something we can build on our own because it is so expensive, but in an idealized universe, if we had the money to do it, this would be the best way of doing it at all same place.
So it seems like a lot of those areas out there are underdeveloped or underutilized. Isn't there an opportunity to build something new and preserve with a remodel what we have and double storage of?
I think that's probably what we'll end up doing. I mean, is the 2 acres to the north are ours. We own them. They were there to do the expansion of the property. When the original was designed, it was designed to be expanded because the maintenance bays are big enough to handle a larger fleet. The parking was built for half the size that the rest of the facility is. And that was an intentional decision as a cost containment measure, 25, 30 years ago. So that space to the north there can be developed with more garage space. That's probably the most cost effective option. And we're looking at that as well as an option out there. But when they did their idealized and reduced walking distances, reduced the risk of people walking across vehicle movement paths. Right now, when the buses get washed and it's warm in the day, they'll wash the bus, but then you drop water on the ground and it freezes and you got ice on the pathways that people are walking on. There's a lot of potential risks out there. And we've had a number of claims over the years for some of those things. So the engineers said, okay, in an idealized universe, this would be the best solution. Probably is. It's also the most expensive solution. So it doesn't mean it's the one that we're going to do.
Predicated on what, a $43 million federal grant.
That's what we applied for, is a $42 million grant to pay for this.
You were jumping ahead, Kyle. plan B, in case we don't get the $43 million grant, is to utilize that unused space and create the facilities over there instead of the nice big single unit we're looking at here.
So I think we're, same thing, we think, the building can be, it doesn't have to come down, it can be repurposed and used for legitimate storage and what we're doing with it, as well as building a facility that allows to wash indoors. And if you take the functions that we really had, it doesn't work quite as well in terms of connectivity and safety, but it gives you a lot of the improvements you need, so. So that is the plan B concept.
Couple of other items, you got battery storage over there, whoops. On the left-hand side of the parking bus garage. We're looking at getting solar panels put on somewhere.
Yeah, that's part of what we applied for. In order to qualify for the monies that were out there, we made this a solar roof with a lot of battery energy storage so that we could actually power the vehicles off of solar power panels. That fits some of the criteria that are out there, and really the building is a structure to support the solar system. The way the application was done is we're gonna do a solar microgrid for the property, and that gets us a building, sort of the way it plays out. Now, if they buy that, we can get $43 million and do a nice building. If it doesn't, we'll have to do something different.
When do you hear about that grant?
September, October time period.
Actually, June.
Yeah, so
They're
June by
they're
June.
doing faster than, thank you, Nick.
So at that time, we'll decide whether we're going to plan A or plan B. Any other questions on this?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, moving on to Board Executive Search Committee. As you know, the board authorized 5 of us, Ann, Rob, Kevin, Randy, and myself, to work with Gary Kaufman to go through what I thought was a very well outlined search process for our next CEO. And that culminated in the work that the committee put in with working alongside Gary, culminated into last Friday, was it? Last Friday, I believe, I'm losing track of my days. We had a meet and greet on Thursday with our, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. We started out with 15 candidates, I believe, and that was pared down. And we ended up with 3 candidates, 3 final candidates that we interviewed. We had a meet and greet for the board members and staff on last Thursday, and then interviewed each one of our 3 candidates on last Friday. And the selection, or excuse me, the search committee has come up with a recommendation to present to the board today, which we will be discussing in executive session. And so I want to reiterate that it was a great process, and I want to thank my fellow members that served on that for carving out time to play that important role. So I don't know if there's anything that either one of you would like to share beyond what I mentioned. Feel free to. So with that, are there any questions about that? Like I said, we will be going into executive session to discuss not only the process in more detail, but the recommendation that was born out of that process. So. Doesn't sound like there are, so we will then move on, and this is the point where I'm going to seek a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing qualifications of an applicant for public employment. I think I'll want to start out with 20 minutes. Does that sound reasonable? Start out with 20 minutes, and then we may have to adjust from there. And this will be restricted to board members only, as well as our council and our recruiter Gary. So
Make that motion, Mr. Chair, to go into executive session for qualifications of an applicant for public employment.
Second.
There's a,
Yes, just point of clarification. I think we should say what time we will come back, rather than how long we're gonna be in there. So given the difficulties with Selena kind of moving us in and out, perhaps you want to say 4 p.m.
Yeah, been, 4 p.m. or 24 minutes before 4 p.m.
I'll second.
yeah, is there a second to that? And it's been moved and seconded, is there discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
So
So we'll close that and it looks like you're